I am joined today with a wonderful artist that some of you might recognise the name of because it's Jenny Stevenson, who is a rep inside our community and also a rep inside our Seven Keys course. And Jenny has been a member of our community for a number of years now. And I thought it would be amazing to bring Jenny in and talk about her journey because I know Jenny will relate to many of you who are taking part in our workshops, feeling terrified, feeling confused, you don't know the answers. So I thought I'd bring Jenny in to have a conversation about Jenny's journey. And so you can get some insights into what Jenny's gone through because she's been through it all, haven't you? Hello.
Oh, thanks so much for having me on. Yeah, it's been quite a journey. Yeah, I met a friend who about 3.5 years ago and did some of the free workshops first. And yeah, I was feeling quite lost and no idea about how to do the businessy side of
Mm,
anything at all, and just needed a bit of guidance. Really, I was looking for a mentor to start
yeah,
with, and
yeah.
then yeah, you popped up. So yeah, it was just the right time,
Yeah.
definitely.
So it would have been one of the free workshops, probably the one we were taking now. Was it an introductory to the
I
Seven
think it
Keys,
was, or it might
maybe?
have been the best year yet.
Our
But
best year yet.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And so what stage were you at that point in terms of your experience in art and how long you'd been making? Can you recall?
Yeah, well, I've been to university to study art when I was like 18 to 21, but I came out of that feeling a bit lost, and I'd on my own had gone through, and I thought I was in quite a good place. I thought I'd found my voice, and I came into the workshops thinking, great, all I need to do is like the businessy side of things, and I
Yeah.
need a bit of help there. But what actually happened was going through your framework with the seven keys and digging a bit deeper, I realised that I had quite a big journey to go still, and there was a lot I could do to develop my work and bring in lots of good practices in, and
Yeah.
yeah, just improve. Yeah,
Yeah.
in lots of other areas aside from just the business side. So yeah,
And so you've always had a fascination with books, haven't you? So when you found us, that was what you were making. And as I recall, it was what you did at uni as well. And I remember your final piece at university was really amazing. And
yeah. I did a we had a teacher come into my university course who taught us how to do artist books, and I just fell in love with them since then. And
that's where it began.
yeah, yeah, that's where it began, and yeah, just gradually evolved. And I've always loved working with paper. Um, I really like the versatility of it. So I can use it to create structures and books, but then I can use it in my collages as well. So I fragment the pieces of paper and then piece them together again. So it's using paper in all its ways, so versatile. But yeah, I was making these books, but there was just a phenomenal amount of effort to make one book. It was like doing
And
a whole collection of work and then it being in one piece of work at the end. And so they were very time consuming and just a lot of work.
yeah,
But I really love
'cause
those. But it's going through the seven keys and finding out the parts of it that I enjoy and then how to maximize those. I didn't ever think of my collages as final pieces at all. They were a part to get to the final product. So I've
yeah,
taken a lot of time to rethink
yeah.
and to realize that those pieces are valuable and they could be sold separately. And then I can do prints of those as well. And there's all sorts
Yeah,
of ways that you can use all the parts of the journey as well as
yeah.
the end. So yeah, it's really opened
Mm.
my mind.
I love that. So I think we probably need to just paint a picture in people's mind of what the books look like. So the books, as you describe them, that are kind of heavy, laborious, aren't they? And they are like a book, aren't they? And each page an artwork, and you concertina them, and you create all these
Yeah.
different types of of books that with holes cut out and
Yeah, it's a bit like paper engineering, really, and
yeah,
using the paper and using cuts and folds in specific places to make them very structural. And my work is inspired by buildings, particularly old buildings, and so I
yeah,
use the structures of the buildings to inform the paper folding that ends up into the books and the three-dimensional collages, which I've gone on to do more of recently.
yeah. And so the books, I remember when we had a conversation a long time ago, and you just said to me, I just don't know how I'm going to make any money by doing these books because it takes me so long. It's like a big project, and then there's no need for them as such. It's not like something you'd put on the wall that you can easily create a
They were
purpose
very hard
for.
to
And I remember that
market,
conversation.
yeah. Yeah. They're very hard to market. It's very hard to try and tell someone why they need to buy one of those. And but still they're like my showstoppers wherever I show
Yeah,
them anywhere. They're like the
yeah, yeah,
the pieces that get the most comments on my Instagram, and
yeah,
they're the pieces that when I show them at any fairs I go to, they're the ones that people are really interested about.
yeah,
But then they'll probably go on to buy something else because
yeah,
they can't see how they would use it. Yeah, it's
yeah.
quite hard to market.
So this is what I wanted to talk about actually, because a lot of people who join the Seven Keys at this point, who have got something that they want to make, they can start to question, like you did, like who's going to buy these books? What's the point of me doing these books? It takes all my time, and just stop and do something completely different. And so it's really amazing. This is why I wanted to bring you in and share this story, because you didn't just stop doing them. They are your passion, and you found a way to kind of delve and shelve from the books. And delving and shelving, sorry if you're listening in and you're thinking, what is she talking about? It's just something that we do inside our community, where we look at an artwork or anything, in fact, and you start to take parts and you leave parts behind, and it's how you evolve your voice. And that's effectively how Jenny's evolved her what, which is the work that she produces. And I think it's incredible, because you've gone from these books and questioned, like, how can I put this out into the world so it's more, there's a purpose for someone, but you still haven't deviated from the books themselves. And it's such a great example, like you say, of how sometimes those pieces have a different purpose. Maybe they're not meant to be sold, maybe they're meant to lure people in and be that conversation starter and that starting point for you. It's like your springboard. They
Yeah.
springboard you into different directions, don't
Yeah,
they?
and I don't feel like I've compromised anything at all. I feel
Yeah,
like I've taken the very best bits of the things that I'm good at and the things that I enjoy, and taken those along with me,
yeah,
and parts the bits that I don't enjoy as much or that
yeah,
aren't necessary. And I just feel like it's an evolving process where just honing what you like doing.
yeah. And there's
So
this
yeah,
balance, isn't there, between that and what is more accessible for people. And this is what I talk about in the Seven Keys, is there's the non-negotiable part of your why, and then there is a negotiable part of the what. And that is what Jenny's talking about here. So we don't deviate from the why, because that's important, and Jenny's books are important, and that structure of paper and everything that Jenny's talking about, you can see her passion. And so that's important. And what can be adapted is the what. And that's what Jenny's done. And that's why I think this conversation is so fascinating, because the what are the books, but also how you then identified that these collage pieces, which were your kind of, I would say, exploratory pieces that you practice on before you take them to the final book.
yeah.
You then saw those in a different light. And this again is
Oh
something that I
yeah,
want to bring to the
that was
surface. Yeah.
eye-opening. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
eye-opening for me because I hadn't seen those in that way at all. I realised that there was so much I could be doing that I wasn't doing. And yeah, and then once I've seen that, I was like, why didn't I ever do this before?
Yeah, because I
Because
think we all had a conversation once about low-hanging fruit, and about how sometimes our prep work can be sold and we don't see it as having any value, because it was just the prep, it was just a practice run. And I remember when I was selling my art, the pieces that got most attention were the rough the rough outlines of things. And I remember thinking I should just be selling these pieces. No one was interested in the final bit, which is where I wanted to get to. And what I love about your journey is that you've identified that and you've adapted the what. So I think anyone listening in, if you've got work and you just think, oh gosh, I just don't think this is going to sell, it's not something that someone can hang on the wall. Just know that there is usually a place for it and it will guide you and not deviate from it, because like watching Jenny's journey and how Jenny's adapted and then brought in these collage pieces and the way Jenny's now presenting her work, and it's just like the last few years all unfolded, and I came to your show and it was incredible because you had your
Yeah,
solo show with all your work
lovely
there.
to meet you. Yeah.
It's amazing. And so that was just, for me, it was just a great observation of how you've adapted so much over the years using the keys I can see.
Yeah, and when I've worked so hard on the why and the what, then the going on forwards to the other keys made it so much easier. Then I knew where I was supposed to put it and who I was
Yeah,
supposed to be trying to get to have eyes on it, to see it,
yeah,
and all of those things just became a lot easier because I was so clear on my collection and the why behind it, and what I was putting out there, that it did make it a lot easier, and it gave me a lot of confidence then to approach people and say, look, I've got this collection, I've got this exhibition on, and so yeah, it all started with the why and the what, and then
yeah,
everything comes
yeah.
up from there. Yeah.
And then I think what was really nice when we met was then talking about that journey from the beginning stages of the books and then being probably kind of like the top layer of the onion, let's say. And then you've gone deeper in terms of now, really honing into a specific landmarks and buildings, because we've watched your journey and you've always, I think, had an interest in buildings, but it went from buildings and it's kind of got narrower and narrower, hasn't it, organically? It's not like you've tried to force it. And what's come from that now is you've now done this whole collection based on mills in your area. Can we talk about that a little bit? Because what that has opened is so many doors and connections. And when I was talking to you, I was like, this is making art your living. Like what you were describing epitomizes that whole statement when we are meeting people and you're like, I've got this opportunity and now I'm feeling enthused about this next project. And let's talk about
Yeah,
that transition.
so
Yeah.
I think it comes down to what you want to be known for,
Yeah.
and people now know me as I do collages and books, and I'm interested in old buildings, and then one of my friends approached me and said, I've seen this competition and it's right up your street. It's something that I think you'd really like, and it was a competition at one of the textile mills that was near me in Derbyshire. And so I went along to it, just thinking, what a great day this is going to be. I get to produce a piece of work from start to finish, and I'll be outside and I'll be near the mill buildings, and it'll be a fantastic day. And I ended up winning the competition. So that was brilliant. But then after I'd won that and I put that out on Instagram, and then somebody contacted me and said, oh, we've got an event. It's about saving the mills. Would you come along? We can give you a board to put some work on and a little table if you want to do a bit of work and have a chat to people. And that was brilliant because I got to meet people who worked at the mills, and they were telling me all their stories. And I mean, by this time I'd already decided that I could make a whole collection out of this. I just
Yeah.
loved the
Yeah.
day, and
Yeah.
it was so inspiring. And just talking to people, there was somebody there who organises a community arts group in the area, and she said, oh, are you getting funding for this project? And I said, oh, well, not really, because I'd only just thought of it. It's just come from this, which was last month, and
Yeah.
And she said, "Oh no, definitely." And before I knew it, I'd got a solo show booked for the next year, and we'd got a venue and everything. I was like, right, I've really got to make this happen now. So yeah, it just all came from that, and it's about being in the right place and
Yeah.
knowing where to put your work. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, and then since I've had the exhibition, it took me actually a whole year to build this collection with other
Wow.
projects in between.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
did a good 6 months of research and experimenting, and then about 6 months of making the actual pieces.
Yeah.
But then since the exhibition, I've had some more opportunities arise, which is brilliant. Some more opportunities to exhibit the pieces, to work with other groups of people, and do talks and all sorts of things. And it's just amazing. So
Yeah,
yeah.
that's super. And you also produced a book, didn't you? And that sold out, was it within an hour or something? So
It was a day, yeah.
within a
So I
day,
put
that was
it.
it.
I'd had it at the preview night of my exhibition, and I don't think it was very prominent. I think people were looking at the work, and
Yeah.
it didn't sell very much. So I was thinking, oh no, I've had all these printed now, and what am I going to do? And I thought, oh, I'll just put a little post up on Instagram and say the book's available.
Yeah.
Um, and then by the next morning, when I woke up the next morning, they'd all gone. And I was just yeah, I was just overwhelmed because I knew a lot of people had been following my journey. I'd had a lot of people commenting, but it was in that moment I realised that people actually really cared about what I was doing and really interested, and
Yeah.
they wanted to support me in some way. Maybe they couldn't buy an original, but the book was something that was some, like something they could have and take away and read
Yeah.
and of their own in their own
Yeah.
time. And so I've had to get another a reprint done.
Which is fantastic. And the book is a beautiful selection of the artworks, telling people more about them, which also is great marketing. So it's like you've
Yeah,
sold your marketing, which is so amazing if you can do that. And so I write that
yeah,
down, everyone listening, because I just think it's such a great way to boost revenue, but also, like you say, to just connect with people. And actually, it shows that people do want to take that first step and buy something. And we always say that once someone's bought something, they're likely to buy again. So if you can build that rapport with your audience and
yeah.
sell
Well, you're talking
something,
about the low
yeah,
hanging fruit, and I was thinking of
mm,
so I'd got all my originals, and then I wanted to offer something, but because the collages were slightly three-dimensional, I tested doing some prints and they just weren't working for me. I just think they lost something along the way, and so then I toyed with the idea of bringing out a little catalogue or something. But the more I worked on it, the more I realised that I wanted all the artworks in there. I also wanted photographs of the mills, and then parts of my process along with it. Um, and so it grew and grew. And I did have I've got some graphic design experience. So it
yeah,
didn't seem as daunting as it might be to some other people. But
yeah,
I, I, yeah, it was a lot of work, but actually, um, yeah, it's definitely worth it because now I've got that to keep selling again and again.
yeah, yeah, of
Yeah.
course. Once it's made, and then you can just keep pushing it out,
Yeah.
and every time.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's brilliant. And so, talk to us about I just want to talk a little bit more about that transition from before. So, when it was about the books, because I know people will be thinking, how did you get to this point of discovering it was about the mills? And so, if can you cast your mind back over the time of doing the Seven Keys and when you've been doing this process? Because I remember at the beginning when you were finding your who, it was about really using that work as a showcase, wasn't it? And being featured in magazines and
Yeah.
related organizations who are interested in books. And now, and this is what I find so fascinating about this, because now it's evolved into very specific, and it's the mills and you've got this community. And so was there a point, I mean, it's probably evolved over time, But just where you I guess it was from meeting people, would you say? Because you said that earlier, where it was really about you just going out and then chatting to someone, and then you just got that inspiration in that moment. So it's felt like it's just organically moved towards that.
It has, but as I've worked through the 7 keys framework, I have done it a few times now over the years, and every time I do it, I I go a bit deeper and I
Yeah.
work out more about myself and also my artwork. And I started pulling out. You have to ask a question and then ask why again, and then why
Yeah.
again
Yeah.
to really dig deeper. And I was thinking, like, why do I like making the books? And I was pulling out all the elements that I really like. I like the tactile nature of them, and I like the fact that it tells a story. So you're using more than one image to tell a story. And so I was extracting all of that. They were like the bits that were really important to me. And then I was thinking, well, how can I use this in another way? So that's why I've started using multiple images. So I do a lot of grids of images. So then multiple images, and then that way I can still tell a story. I can capture a place using multiple angles, and I can. There was other things that I was using with the mills to inspire that sort of idea of multiples, with
Yeah.
bringing together a community of people into one building. That's what they used to do. The workers used to all come together in one building. When previous to that, they were all in their separate houses working individually. And
Yeah.
that idea of bringing lots of individual elements together, that was part of it. And then also, like, it suggests repetition.
Mm.
So like a repetition of the day to day grind of the work.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, when it was brilliant writing the introduction in the book. It really concreted all my ideas and made me realise why everything had come about. There was all Every part of it was there for a reason.
Yeah. Yeah. It had meaning. And I
Yeah.
guess the 7 keys has helped you with writing that intro and being able to articulate what you
Oh,
do.
absolutely. Because I'm not confident with writing at all. It probably, I
Yeah.
would say, one of my weaker areas.
Yeah.
But as you're going through and asking the questions within the lessons, it writes itself almost, because
Yeah.
you're answering these questions, and then you just have to put it together.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
You realise I've got a
so
statement
much
here.
easier. Yeah, whereas before I would struggle, and that was probably the most time consuming part of it still.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I felt like it was really important. It needed to be in there, just as
Yeah.
much as the photographs needed to be in there of my inspiration and my sketchbooks and the final pieces.
Yeah.
It needed to be in there. So that's about pushing yourself a little bit out of your comfort zone to achieve something that you're proud of.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. Super.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations on your recent show. What's next for you in terms of the direction that you're going in now? Do you know, or are you at that cycle of just
I do
finished?
know, actually.
You
I do
do?
know, because it's very exciting, because I've managed to get a studio in a place near to me, and that's going to be the base then for work in that area. So I'm going to start another collection, maybe not quite as big as this one, but
Yeah. Yeah.
just do some work there. It's like a hot desking space, so
Yeah.
it'd just be nice to, because I do work from home in the home studio, and I think it'd just be nice to get out just for a bit.
Yeah.
I've
Change of
been here for
scenery.
6 months, and
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
yeah, that's great. And there's another opportunity in about a year's time to do another exhibition, and that will be based in another area. So I've got plans quite far ahead. So it's great though. It's really good to have that focus and know where you're going. And
Yeah.
I do think that's a really good tip, because um, if you came out of a project this big and didn't know what you were going to do next, you could actually just end up spending months doing
Yeah.
nothing, feeling a bit lost.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I've got a
And
few other little projects as well, a collaboration that's come out of something I did recently as well. And yeah, so it's really exciting. There's lots happening.
It's like when you got given the solo opportunity, it makes you go, wow, I've got to do this now. Because I think sometimes without that opportunity or deadline, you just make up reasons why you can't do it. And so it gives you
Yeah,
that purpose, doesn't it,
yeah.
to
Well, we talked
get
about
this done.
this year, yeah, briefly, and having a solar exhibition has been on my goals list for since the very beginning,
You
since
did it.
2020, I think it was when I started.
Mhm.
And every year I was finding excuses, and I think it was fear. It was like
Yeah,
I don't know how to do this. I don't know where to start.
yeah,
But having it there, and it's the opportunity's given, and don't want to waste the opportunity. I
yeah.
was like, I've got to do this. I've got to find a way, and I want to make this happen. And when you get determined like that, it gives you so much motivation to get stuck in and actually do the work.
Yeah, yeah. Gosh, so
Yeah.
good. Thank you so much for coming in. Where can
Oh, it's
people
my
find
pleasure.
you if they want to follow you in your art journey? Where's the
Oh,
best
well, I'm
place?
on Instagram at Jenny Stevenson Art, and then my website's www.jennystevenson.com.
Fantastic. We'll put the links below as well so you can go and follow Jenny. Any final thoughts, Jenny, for anyone who's maybe following along with the Seven Keys framework or working on getting their art into the world?
Well, it can be quite scary to start off with. There's quite a lot to take in, and a lot to implement. But if you just take one thing at a time and just implement it, and give it a go and see if you can try and work on that, then
Yeah,
when that becomes easy, then you can add another thing in and another. But it can be quite a lot all in one go. So, but there's so many gems of information in your workshop. So I hope people enjoy them and take a lot from
yeah.
them.
It is good advice because especially if it's the first time you've come across the framework before, it can be like, whoa, and it can open up doors that you've never explored. And like Jenny says, though, we really do help you break it down step by step inside the course as well. So we do focus on that inside our membership as well. We're always bringing it back to what's the next step I need to take? What's the one or three maximum? But you just want to know what that one next step is. So that's really great advice because it applies to everything, doesn't it? Not just our art, but life.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. I can't think of more than three things in one time.
No.
Especially not having followed your advice for all this time. Yeah, it's just too much.
Jenny, it's so lovely to speak to you. Thank you so much for
Yeah,
joining
me
us. I really
too.
appreciate you taking the time out, and it's lovely to see your art in the background. And so,
Oh,
if you want to, yeah, look at that, it's lovely. And that piece, if oh, sorry, you're probably listening on the podcast and you can't see, but if you go and check out Jenny on Instagram, you'll see the way Jenny presents her work, and it's just so interesting how all her different pieces are some of them are hanging on tags and some of them are cut out and you look inside and they're really dynamic actually. And I think when I was at uni, that was one of the things that I remember being told was always think about your presentation. Like I was always being told about that because
very important to
I had
me.
sloppy presentation. I used to make the art and then stop there, and they always used to ram that down my throat, and it's always stuck with me because it does make a massive difference how you present your work, and it's sometimes just as important as the work that you've created. That the way you present it can change it, can enhance it, can just seal the deal.
It's what I put
um
the most comments on actually is
is
the
it really?
presentation. Yeah.
Yeah, the way you present, yeah, so it shouldn't be overlooked. Yeah, so go and check Jenny out. I wish you
Thank
lots and lots of
you.
success with
Thank
your
you
next
so much.
projects, and I'll of course see you inside the hub
Yeah.
and in the Seven Keys as we get ready. I can't wait to see
Yeah.
who
Oh, I'm
joins us
looking
this
forward to
year.
it. I love this. I love seeing everyone's journey and how they
I
grow and develop.
know,
It's great.
I know. And then checking in 12 months later to see where they are. And Jenny is one of our reps. So Jenny is a rep inside our hub community and also our Seven Keys community. And so Jenny's been there, done it. So she is there to support you as well along the way. So thank
Yeah.
you for supporting our
Champion
community.
everybody and really
Yeah,
encourage them. Yeah.
it's amazing. Thank you. Take care. Thank you for tuning in, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.